Okay, welcome everybody. It's Articles of a Mentor, aka Mentor Series. I'm here with Matthias Dusil. I'm Gabriel Dusil. What's this one called? This one's called Scammers. Crypto Scammers.
Yeah, crypto scammers, that's it.
It's Crypto Scammers. And the purpose is really to go through a series of my articles with my son and talk about the behind the scenes and really the conceptual reasons of how I put together these articles. Did I miss anything?
For me, this is a series where I learn a lot from you. Of course, you have a lot of lessons to pass on, so that's really why we even came together in the first place to put this together.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you actually to have thought of this idea and to participate in it, and it's part of our legacy.
I think you're reading today, so you can read us through the third article.
So this one, as I said, is called Crypto Scammers, warning strong language I have in the article. Crypto has attracted a massive cesspool of sociopathic scammers since its inception. These people completely lack empathy and don't give a fuck about ruining the lives of honest people. They see empathy as a weakness. When they steal, their excuse is people are stupid, it's their fault for trusting me. Scammers have a demented view of reality. Here's a typical template of a social media crypto scammer. Someone connects with you on Facebook, Instagram, or other social media platform and strikes up a conversation. They first work to establish common ground. Sometimes they'll ask for a WhatsApp number or a Telegram account to enable an encrypted channel, also out of band to the main channel so that the big brother can't actually see what you're doing. There's also a secondary reason for this. They want to block you on the original social media channel before you have a chance to report them to scammers. From their perspective, it's a hassle to repeatedly create new accounts. For this reason, many scammers have multiple accounts that are only a few weeks old. The scammer then appeases your ego. They delve into your hobbies and interests. They want you to feel special. After a few days, they cast their first hook. The scammers start to brag about how successful they have become in crypto, Bitcoin, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, gold, silver, and even oil. They focus on securities with no governmental oversight. They may also throw in some fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD. By spelling out recession and zombie apocalypse scenarios. Sans zombies, that was a joke. I don't know why I wrote that. Okay. They drop hints to their financial gains to see if you'll bite. If they show interest, then the scammer will offer their know-how into the crypto rabbit hole. Around this time, I mentioned that I have 20 years experience in IT security, homeland security. They do a bit of internet profiling to confirm I'm telling the truth. 99% of the time, I get blocked and ghosted by this time. Go figure. Victims who proceed beyond this point are introduced to a fake proxy crypto exchange. In the back end, all traders are completely fabricated and manipulated to give the illusion of making money. Victims are convinced to invest their savings to make even more money. Once they decide to cash out, they're exposed to a shitstorm of the thieving ecosystem. By this time, their entire life savings is lost down a black hole. Or they're introduced to an NFT platform, non-fungible token, that makes money from you via Ethereum gas, the fee required to successfully conduct a transaction. NFT scams are plentiful, including A, pump and dump schemes, B, crypto wallet phishing, C, counterfeit NFTs, D, fake platforms, and many more. Okay, so I don't chase money. I don't live for money. My existence doesn't revolve around money. For this reason, when I'm presented enthusiastically with the next generation get-rich scheme, I couldn't care less. Throughout my life, I've been thankful to work on projects that I've loved. Throughout this journey, I've earned enough to be comfortable. I've been lucky not to worry about money for survival. A few other patterns are consistent with scammers. They rarely answer questions while probing a lot. Their goal is to collect as much information about you as feasible for deploying their scam. Sometimes these details are thrown back in your face as blackmail. The more successful you are in establishing common ground, the more ammunition they have to exploit you. Their photos are not real. They'll choose a gender that's attractive to their victims, often using sexuality as part of their sales tactics. The scammers' profiles are almost certainly labeled as single or divorced, and their location will be a proxy city far from you. Crypto scammers are the assholes of society. I often wonder how disappointed their mothers would be if they found out their offspring had turned into scum. There you go. That's my crypto scammer article, number 3.
I think that is a huge sentiment that, I mean, you and me have, I think our whole family has. We've come into contact with scammers in the past. We've been scammed in the past. All of these are lessons learned for the rest of your life. Everyone hates scammers, I guess, except for scammers. But yeah, let's delve into this topic. What first sparked this idea? I guess it was an encounter with a scammer or something of that matter that you just kind of sparked this idea of, let me write this article. What sparked that idea for this article?
So that's a great question, and it really starts from my photography, actually. So I've been doing this genre of photography right now for 7 years, and the first 4 years I was looking for models like crazy. I was scouting, looking for all the channels for scouting for models, and my first channel for scouting was Facebook. And in Facebook, they give you friend suggestions. So through friend suggestions, I was looking for models and contacting them, and I had a template response that I'm a photographer, all that sort of thing. And I would get responses from that. But through this whole process, once in a while, I'd come across a profile that was super suspicious. And it always came down to like, yeah, I'm a model and we could do a photo shoot, but have you heard of crypto? And then it would start the whole like completely tangential discussion. So after probably about 10 of those, I just wrote this article because I know about scammers through internet security that I was doing for a couple decades, but the whole crypto market really brought these people out from hell. And with a new technology like crypto, they would just grab onto it quickly and figure out how they can steal as much money as possible. So eventually I got to the point where I would engage them just for fun, just to kind of more understand the psychology of the scammer, of how they're trying to manipulate the victim. And then through that process, I kind of found the pattern in writing this article. I got to the point after about 20, I started just sending them the article. And I said, yeah, by the way, I wrote this article about scammers, about crypto. And then once they read it, then they blocked me. They knew the gig was up.
I guess they saw the title, Crypto Scammers, and the show was over, I guess.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't even read the article. Yeah, they just saw the title.
So you're saying this is from when you first started diving into art nude photography and before you kind of got everything rolling. But I guess you have been encountering scammers all your life, right? Do you remember the first time that you were ever scammed, maybe in your early teens, late teens?
I don't really remember the first time I got a scam. The early days, it was very simple. Things become much more sophisticated. These days, it's much more nefarious where, you know, you have, let's say, a hosting platform, and then you get some email. Oh, all of your emails are blocked. Click here to unblock your emails. With the imagination of these thieves, it's unbelievable how they can just think of branding this email to another company and, okay, I think I can get a bunch of people with this idea, and then 1,000 people copy that idea, and it goes on and on. So
when you were younger and the internet wasn't around as much or just was beginning to become widespread, it wasn't as easy to come into contact with scammers, I can imagine. Like, scammers were part of a specific area of society, a specific industry maybe, in the real world where you're already dealing with shady activity anyway. Yeah, I mean, with the internet, you're totally right. Ever since I was a kid and started using technology, that was just a thing, like emails, and now it's reached social media ever since that became a thing. So maybe it's even more important for children nowadays and people my age to just live in a society and learn how to navigate a society where these people are everywhere.
Their motivation is obvious. They just want to steal your stuff. But the motivation on the victim side is it's a very simple carrot. And if a scammer presents a carrot that you want, then that's really the basis. But the thing is, because I don't chase money, I'm not really susceptible to these scams. When somebody says, you know, you can make $50,000 if you just do this, I really don't care. My whole motivation is the psychology of the asshole that's trying to steal my money, right? And understand how low they need to get so that you give them the information. The whole problem with these scams is that software development is evolving so fast that the analogy I give it is that it's like building a castle with 10,000 windows, and the castle is the software, and every window is open, but you need to deliver that software by a certain day, and you really don't care that the windows are open because you have a deadline to meet, right? So all the thief needs to do is to find that one window to get into your castle, but you have 10,000 windows to close, and that's going to cost you probably 4 times more than the actual core development itself. So this is the whole problem with the castle security mentality in this context, because the castle has to close 10,000 windows, but the scammer only needs to find one window that's open.
Yeah, you're at a constant race against the thief and hoping that you're going to close the correct windows. And you touched on this aspect of being scammed, as the best victims for the scammers are people that are desperate for whatever it is that the scammer is offering. So being in a financially desperate situation, the most common situation, just automatically puts you at a disadvantage. And it kind of, in my mind, creates this infinite loop. So many people aren't going to get out of their low financial bracket because they're constantly being pushed lower and lower whenever they believe something like this. Maybe you're finally going to start making the money that you need to get out of a lower financial layer, but then you encounter a scammer, you give them all you've already saved up, and then you're back to ground zero again. Hopefully you won't trust a scammer again in the future, but I mean, I guess it oftentimes takes encountering a scammer to avoid them again in the future. It's just this vicious cycle, and it's so frustrating.
Well, you know, I would say that desperation is one aspect to the victim's psychology, but it actually doesn't have to be desperation at all. Another aspect is loneliness. For example, somebody may be lonely and looking for a partner, so then you have a relationship scam. But a lot of people that are chasing carrots aren't necessarily desperate. They're just chasing money their whole life. I mean, much of Western society chases money their whole life. So they could have $1 million, and then a scammer comes to them and says, "You have $1 million? I can get you $2 million.
Right.
If you invest that $1 million, you can get $2 million." And there's like, "Oh, I can get $2 million now. I can get $2 million. Oh, now I have $2 million. I can get $4 million." Desperation doesn't even have to play into the game at all. It's just people that are chasing that carrot their entire life, that material gain. And that doesn't help you once you go to the grave anyway, all that money. But they're still going to do it anyway, right to their grave, because that's what gives them their dopamine.
I remember me and my girlfriend Bara going through quite a big scam related to housing a few years ago, and I just remember, first of all, the anger and the hatred that I had, but also the anger and hatred that I saw you having, and I guess just, linking it to your children being taken advantage of. What goes through your mind when you encounter a scam, or you see someone being affected by a scam, or when you saw me being a victim of a scam?
Well, I really don't want to get into the details of how I felt because that's a little bit dangerous. The concern is what would happen if that person was in front of you.
Right, right.
Things can get pretty dark during those days. So I really don't want to get into that. It's just the brazenness of these people. I mean, the irony of the whole situation is that I do have some empathy for some scammers. A lot of scamming happens when there's a huge disparity between rich and poor. Right? So, I mean, in a country where a 13-year-old is coming into a store and stealing food, the store owner will be upset that the kid is stealing food, but maybe that kid is starving and he needs to feed his sister and his mother and his uncle, right? So, I mean, there is that scenario that plays out around the world where you have this desperation.
I think there are three categories of scammers that come to my mind, and it's the pure scammer, the one that really just wants to, steal from you. Then there's the desperate scammer, the one that you mentioned, where it's still voluntary, but they're doing it because they need it in a certain sense. And then there's the third scammer, which is kind of the involuntary scammer, and that's when you have these huge scam centers in Asia, for example, where they just kidnap you, set you up in a compound, and they force you to scam people because otherwise they're going to torture you or kill you or whatever.
The true psychopaths are the mafia that's running that show. Even in that ecosystem, every layer has somebody overseeing you that will punish you if you're not doing your job. Right? So the whole system is set up so that almost everybody's a victim except the person at the very top, which is crazy. Having empathy for these people that are scamming you is so ironic. But
it shows the reality of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so to frame this next question, you mention in the article, when they steal, their excuse is, people are stupid, it's their fault for trusting me. So they're kind of trying to shift the responsibility away from themselves and blame the victim themselves, that they're stupid enough to fall for it, which is why I'm doing it in the first place. What's your reaction to that?
What I'm targeting there are the sociopaths, right? They see the whole scamming game as a game.
Right.
And if they steal your money, then they won the game. And they just said, I won because you're stupid. Complete sociopathic, psychopathic people that don't give a shit about anybody, about themselves. They just want to win the game over and over again at the expense of everybody else.
And sometimes you think, if only I could meet this person and show them the pain they've caused me, but then you realize they don't really care about the pain they've caused you. They've lived their entire lives not caring about the pain they've caused anyone, and that's what keeps them at this, allows them to continue to do this, is that even if you met them and showed them what they've done, they don't care, right?
That's actually a good point, because I have another article that we'll get to, hopefully. It's called Everyone's an Asshole. As I was writing the article, I thought about the situation where I confront a scammer or an asshole, and I would try to dig under their skin to understand their motivations. What would I do if the scammer says, yes, I'm an asshole? What are you going to do about it?
Right, right.
What are you going to do?
That's so frustrating as well.
So you're trying to get them to come to Jesus with their reality, and then they actually do. And then what do you do if you're both in agreement that scammer is an asshole? It's really useless, because you're dealing with sociopaths, right? You're dealing with people who don't give a shit. And I have an article, another one that I wrote, and I'm not sure what it's called now, but we'll get to it. And it basically says that sociopaths built economies, but empathy will save the world, or empathy will save humanity. And I believe that to be true, because sociopaths have really built economies, because you need to be sociopathic to go up the ladder of success and crush competition and so on. But in a purely sociopathic society, everybody would be annihilated. And the converse scenario in this thesis is a purely empathetic society also doesn't work either. So there has to be this balance, unfortunately, of these sociopaths to keep people awake and the empaths to keep them human.
Coming back to the article and the specifics of being lured into the scam and being a victim of the scam, I think fear of missing out is a big element of, especially what you mentioned with the crypto rabbit hole. People feel, and it seems so attractive, as you said, people are chasing money all the time. And this feeling of, I'll show you a world that you don't know yet. I'll explain crypto to you. Come join my crypto thing and you will make so much money. Like, they feel like if they say no, they're missing out on an amazing opportunity. Isn't that a big part at play here as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is centered around insecurity of not being included, being isolated in society, wanting to be part of your tribe, let's say.
Being able to brag, right?
Yeah, and to feel needed, to feel wanted. So I definitely think that FOMO plays a big role. We used to say when we were your age, keeping up with the Joneses, where when the neighbors are successful, you're jealous. Jealousy is a form of insecurity. I think that since much of society is insecure, we're faced with a chronic FOMO issue in the world.
And arguably this keeping up with the Joneses issue has become even more of a pathology with social media, where it's no longer let me keep up with the Joneses who are my next door neighbor, but let me keep up with the Joneses, meaning every single other person online that is presenting everything they've got and only the positive sides of what they've got. And you just feel like, if I don't take this crypto scam, I will never be able to keep up with all of the Joneses online. And if I win big with this, I can become one of the Joneses and also share this huge wealth that I get from this. And it's just, yeah, all part of the game, right?
Yeah, you want bragging rights. You want to brag to the neighbors and your friends that you got in on a great deal and the get rich quick scheme worked for you.
So you mentioned they focus on securities with no governmental oversight. So are you saying that if the government was more involved here, then this would be less of an issue? Or what is the benefit of them going in the direction of no governmental oversight?
Well, in the early days of crypto, you were able to get a crypto account and trade in crypto anonymously on a lot of exchanges. So you didn't have to submit any credentials. You didn't have to do what in banking is called KYC, know your customer. Banks are required through regulation to do KYC, which means they really need to understand who you are through government issued credentials. And once they know who you are, then they'll deal with you. But crypto came along and said, we don't care who you are. But what happened over the years, especially in the early years, a lot of these platforms were shut down. They were indicted by the US government or by other governments and shut down, which means that everybody who was on that platform was shut down because all the private keys resided on that exchange. And when they have the private key of your account, that means they have all of your crypto, Bitcoin or whatever, Ethereum, thousands of other alternate coins. You could basically make millions of dollars and nobody knew who you were. And a lot of those days are gone now.
But with all of these people everywhere and more people on planet Earth, more and more people doing scams, robbing people of what they have, it's becoming even more and more of a challenge for government and security infrastructure to keep up with that, because if you have people getting scammed every single day and they're being scammed of amounts from $100 all the way to $100,000, the police isn't even going to be able to resolve 90% of that if like there are so many scammers in the world, right? When we got scammed with that housing situation that I mentioned earlier, we reported that to the police, and you don't hear back because what's the police going to do? Sit down and try to get back your $1,000 that you lost? I mean, the question is, what are they even doing about it?
One thing that I believe that authorities do is they look at the low-hanging fruit. So they look at the biggest offenders that are causing the biggest damage and go after them. Now, I've kind of learned over my lifetime that there is a limit to that strategy, because I kind of come to the realization that if the scammer is too big and is connected to too many people that are important, then the authorities might not go after them because they don't want a war with a huge organization. So I think that the low-hanging fruit also applies to the fact that if they can indict somebody who is causing the biggest damage, but causes the minimum war, then they'll go after them. But if they're too big, then they become untouchable.
Right, because they're trying not to open a can of worms, right?
Yeah, you're opening a can of worms because you're not dealing with one scammer, you're dealing with an organization of scammers, and you're dealing with organized crimes and so on. And I think a lot of authorities don't want to go there. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's just an assumption. It's kind of more reading between the lines of what I've observed over the last few decades, but that's just kind of an observation of how I see how the world works.
But this whole thing of even like you're never going to get your money back, you're not going to be able to catch the thief, it's probably part of this big organization. It is inevitably creating and sowing this huge amount of distrust in society as a whole. And that's probably a part of why people are being driven so far away from each other with advancements of technology and social technology, because everyone's increasingly pessimistic. Everyone's increasingly protective. They're all trying to make sure, and understandably so, that they don't get trapped in one of these scams. So people are trusting each other less. People are unwilling to take the chance that something, especially in a relationship, is not a relationship scam. And everyone is just becoming way more protective of what they have, because they know if I get scammed, and even if I have information on this person, I probably won't get anything back anymore. So I'm just not even going to trust anyone, let alone this one person who's messaging me, because it's just too tiring to try to catch what's probably a bad scam, who's someone that I can trust. And, it's becoming this loneliness epidemic, I guess. So
let's dissect your scenario. I think it's a good one. Certainly from that scam, you become hypervigilant. So you tell the local authorities you got scammed. They're like, oh, that's horrible. Here, we'll do the report. And then you think it from their perspective. Okay, so our job, we need to send a letter to this foreign police that this scam happened. So then they send that letter over to the other country, and they've done their job. That's it. Their protocol is to file a report. I don't know what the actual procedure is, but I'm just guessing that this is what happened, right? So I'm no authority on what the authorities are actually doing.
And meanwhile, on the other side is piling up with all these reports that they're receiving. They could be ignoring it because both sides are going to stop taking responsibility for something that's, somewhere in the middle. Law enforcement is not keeping up with technology and the way that people are doing things. So if the law enforcement isn't keeping up, scammers are getting better, people are getting more vigilant, they're not trusting each other more. There's just no way to keep up with it. And I'm interested what the future of scamming is going to be like, especially with artificial intelligence coming up and becoming even more widespread and more intelligent than ever. It just as much as you can use something as a tool, you can use it as a weapon.
This is a war with criminals, and the criminals are winning the war. And we can be winning a few battles along the way, but the war is being lost and it's getting worse. And coming back to this rental scam, you can imagine this local authority getting your report and they're filing the 570th
Exactly.
rental scam report in that year, and it's only March.
Yeah.
And that's not probably their low-hanging fruit.
Exactly.
Or there's maybe more serious crimes that they're focusing on rather than what they would maybe refer to as petty theft crime.
Right.
All we can do is really just be vigilant, and that's it, and just try to do our job in being careful. And as they become more sophisticated in scamming us, we just need to be more sophisticated in not being scammed.
This is kind of leading us to the point where I wanted to ask you, what do you suggest that we do? What is the lesson here? Like, I know that when me and my sister Phoebe have been growing up, you've been teaching us, to avoid such things, and you always made us aware that thieves exist, bad people that want to take things from us exist, ever since we were at a young age. So what are the main lessons that you can share with not only me, but just people at large to avoid this?
I think it really comes down to something that we said way before the internet existed. And it's, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
I think a big one is talking to people that you trust. Everyone has people that they trust in their life, and rather than making a decision that seems, as you said, too good to be true, or maybe doesn't sound like too good to be true, but just sounds really good and it seems like a good opportunity, you're never going to be amiss if you just talk about whatever you've encountered with people that you trust, with your family, with your partner, with your closest friends. Like, what do they think about it? What are your vibes that you're getting out of this? Or maybe even, you have expertise in crypto, so whenever I would encounter something, I can bring it to you and say, hey, like, what is this about? Like, does this seem true, fair, or whatever? And you can weigh in on it and let me know if it sounds legitimate or not. So I think talking to the people that we trust, and first of all, having a network of people that we trust is a big way to not immunize ourselves, but at least protect ourselves a layer more than usual.
The issue that we have with the internet now is that how do we establish trust with somebody that we've never met and we will never meet in person, ever? And that's another challenge. Certainly with certain check boxes of vigilance, we can establish trust with somebody that we've never met before. It's really the nature of the world, right? We're doing business with people we'll never meet in another country, sometimes in another language. We're now able with AI to converse with somebody in their language and in your language, which are two different languages, and they're being simultaneously being translated by AI using a single platform. And if you really want to deal with people in other countries because of the nature of your business or the hobbies that you're doing or other types of relationships that you want to build, then the dynamics of setting up that trust a little bit more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's more challenging for sure.
And it's important to have physical friends and like being connected to people in the real world, because I guess with everything becoming more and more online, it's becoming way more valuable to have these in-person interactions, because that's kind of the only way that you can be sure that it's not an illusion, right? I mean, people say, don't believe half of what you see anyway, but still, like, it's become the most trustworthy medium that we have is what we experience in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you made a good point there, because the generations that are coming up now are less interacting physically with people and more interacting online. And that is in itself a chronic issue that's some organizations that people are trying to address. But that physical communication with people is so vital moving forward, absolutely.
And a big part of it also, I think, is if you meet a friend in real life and you go to chat with them, you go out for coffee with them. At some point, you're probably going to, visit their house and meet their parents, meet their family as well. And this all is like just kind of like insurance to you. Like, I know that this person is real. I know that this person has a family. I've met their family. I know who the family is, and you get a feel for people, especially if you have empathy for who they are. But nowadays, people are meeting friends online, and then you no longer have that connection of like, you're probably never going to meet someone's parents or siblings if you meet them online. It's all going to stay on that one social platform. You're just going to be talking to them there, and there's no longer that second layer of, let me introduce you to my family, because that's just not a thing. You're not going to introduce someone to your family on a call.
That you're grounded, and I'm actually proud that you actually have that perspective on life. That's good.
It's definitely going to be a challenge for me and my partner when we have children, because it's a completely different life that we're living in, and it was a completely different situation for your parents bringing you up, and then you bringing me and my sister up. Like, that's every generation, you have these new challenges to face and new technologies to learn to work with. And I think it's also important that you are trying to keep up with technology as long as you can, because it becomes exhausting to keep up with everything, but you're still there. We're still having this podcast here with all this technical setup. So I think as long as you're trying to stay intelligent, continue learning, be aware of all the tools that everyone has at their disposal, that just all can ultimately defend you.
That's a great point, and I think it's a good point on to finish on, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a good way for us to close this one. Crypto scammers, definitely a bit more of an emotional ride for this one that's linked to some personal situations that we've been through, but it's an important discussion, right?
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad we went through it. That wraps up number 3. Looking forward to the next episode with you.
And maybe we can tease the next article here. That one will be beautiful photography. So a revisit to the realm of photography. That should be an interesting one as well.
Okay, you read next time.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.